everybody, welcome back to the vlog. Thank you once again for joining me for tea time. Today we have some Misty Morning, really good dark moon teas. Go check them out. Anyway, today is going to be an Olympus day. We haven't talked about Olympus very much as of late. The last time we did talk about them, we spoke of them I think in June when they said that, listen, we are getting rid of our camera business. We're selling it off. We're basically taking the chunk that does cameras, isolating it, and selling it, getting rid of it. Well, they ended up going through this investment team, which is JIP, which is the Japan Industrial Partners. This is a company that buys out portions of other companies and then revamps them and then resells them or whatever it is. They're basically like a scrap metal company, right? They take the scrap metal, then they process it, and then they resell it as something else. Sometimes they keep what it used to be, the name, let's say. They keep the logos, they keep the naming and all the rest of the stuff. Sometimes they don't, it just depends. Now, this is the same company back in 2014 that ended up buying Sony's VAIO system, right? You remember the VAIO computers, the VAIO laptops? Well, this Japan Industrial Partners did the exact same thing. Sony in 2014 was kind of getting sick of the whole VAIO doing the laptop thing, and they said, you know, we're going to break off VAIO and we're just going to sell it to the scrapyard, right? The scrap agency, as I call it. And that's what they did. They got rid of it. They gave it to JIP. They took care of it, and that was the end of it. I think Sony still has about a 5% stake in VAIO, and I think they have some IP still left, some intellectual property still left. Well, this is the exact same company that's doing the same thing with Olympus's camera department. They are taking the camera department and they are buying it out. They're said that they had a memorandum of understanding that happened in June, and by the end of 2020, we're going to see that full transfer of all shares to JIP from Olympus. But in the interim, Olympus is not done yet, right? They have a brand new mirrorless Micro Four Thirds out. Now, you know, I'm not a fan of Micro Four Thirds, but I also know that a lot of you absolutely love Micro Four Thirds. Why? Because they're small, compact, something you can stick into your purse or in your pocket. They do a really good job with it. And Olympus is one of those camera manufacturers that did Micro Four Thirds very much so like an old school camera. All right? You know, I need to show you my old, then hold on a second. All right, guys, so old school cameras. You see this Olympus back here? That's that ODM, the EM10, right? The EM10, the brand new one, Mark IV. Well, if you look at that and you look at this, it looks pretty similar, right, guys? Pretty similar. This is my first camera. What is this? This is a Minolta SRT 102. Let me take this leather casing off. Back then they had leather casing. Do you see that anymore? You don't see that. Anyways, that's what it looks like. It's very similar, right? We're missing something on the back, obviously. We put film in the back instead of having a nice little touch panel on the back of this. But anyways, very similar. And that's what Olympus did. They made their cameras very much so like a old school film camera. So they worked really nicely. One of the things that I really like about Fujifilm, for example, and Olympus is they have all the dials on the top. They have full functionality, full control over everything right here. You're never having to chimp on the back and play with that touch panel on the back and all this stuff. You don't need to do it. You can turn things, flip things, take whatever. It makes it simple. It makes it very easy to be able to make modifications to your settings, right? On the fly, in the field, looking through the viewfinder, right? I really, really do like it. Anyways, moving into the actual topic at hand, this brand new camera, this Mark IV now of their EM10. It really looks interesting, all right? It's kind of one of those things where if you look at the specs, they look really good, but on a side, it looks kind of more of the same, all right? We're going to go through the specs. I know I'm not really like the spec guy. It kind of just bores the, just hell out of me, but we have to go through the specs just so you know what's in this camera, if it's something that you might like, something that you might want to buy. And then I want to give you some ideas on where I stand on it, and is it something that you should jump into, and why I think yes, why I think not. Anyways, let's get right on into it. So they start out with a brand new 20.3 megapixel live MOS sensor. This is brand new. This is not a reused, which is cool. And it comes with the TruePic 8 image processor, and the ISO goes from 200 ISO all the way up to 25,600. Now in today's standards, 25,600 is really poor. Now it does have 5-axis in-body image stabilization. A lot of you guys just absolutely love it. And it is, I think it's 4.5 EV as far as stops of compensation for movement, you know, that image stabilization. And for Micro Four Thirds, it really works out great. I am not a fan of image stabilization in body when it comes to full frame. When you're taking this big sensor and moving it around, things get just all jacked up, okay? But with Micro Four Thirds, where it's smaller and it's doing this thing really quickly, you're not getting as much of that jello. It does a much better job at in-body image stabilization. For me, I personally like in-lens stabilization when it comes to the larger sensors, but that's not for this video. Next, 8.7 frames per second is what it'll be able to shoot high-speed continuous shooting, which is pretty quick. Is it really fast? Not really. Do I think it should be quicker? Yes. Why? Because it's a tiny sensor. To be able to capture 20 frames per second with the tiny Micro Four Thirds sensor really doesn't take a lot to be able to do it. Obviously, you need a better processor, and this processor obviously will not be able to do anything more than 8.7 frames per second. Let's call it 9 frames per second. Next, improved CAF. Now, this is a better continuous focusing on moving subjects. That is very important. Today, there's a lot of hybrid shooters. People just absolutely love being able to shoot photo, but also video. And when you're in video, you need to be able to track. If you're trying to shoot some video and just the AF is completely off, it ends up being problematic, right? Ends up being problematic. So this is supposed to really hone in onto the subject and stick to the subject pretty well. How well in comparison to others, I don't know. That's yet to be determined. Next comes the AF system itself. It has 121 points of contrast detect AF. Now, for me, I would like to see a combination of contrast detection as well as phase detection. That's how you get a really good means of autofocus and being able to lock on. Contrast detect, it works and it doesn't work. Sometimes it's really good in certain lighting situations. Other times it hunts a lot. So I would like to have seen phase detection, but it does not have that. Also, they said that it has that improved face priority as well as eye priority AF. So that CAF that they have in there with their 121 points of contrast detect does have face recognition in there as well as eye tracking, which is really cool. That's, once again, that is very much so appreciated by everyone. It doesn't matter if you're taking photo or if you're taking video. To be able to track eyes, I think is fantastic. I think is almost a necessity today. Now, as far as the EVF, we've talked about EVS that was late, and we were like, wow, I can't even believe Sony with like 9 million dots of resolution in their EVF. Like, how is that even possible, you know? So this EVF is at 2.3 million. So it's really on the lower end of today's standard EVFs, let's say. Today's standards are 3 to 4 million, let's say. So it's probably under half, maybe right around half the amount that I personally think it should be. EVFs are your window to the world, all right? And the better that EVF is, the clearer it is, the higher resolution it is, the higher the refresh rate is really important. And of course, non-blackout. You can't take a picture and while it's recording or while it's writing, you go black, all right? Now, in today's EVFs, you don't see that as much, but sometimes you might get some flickering, especially if you're really taxing the read-write process back and forth on the systems. Next comes the back panel. Now this is, of course, a touch panel, 3 inches, which is nice. That's where most of them are today, 3 inches to 3¼ inches. The panel itself, I really would like to have seen them go with a fully articulated back panel instead of this flip down only deal. You know, I think the flip up and the flip down, there's a place for it, but in today's tech and how easy it is to be able to take a back panel and make it fully articulated, where it comes out and then rotates back to the subject. So if they want to use it for doing selfies, let's say, or if they want to use it for doing videoing of themselves and vlogging or something, or maybe they want to use this camera now for a webcam. All right. It makes it very difficult when you can't see yourself and the thing is flipping down. And even if it flipped down and rotated, whatever it doesn't even make a difference, because then you'd have a tripod in the way. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense. A fully articulated back panel is a necessity in 2020. I'm not going to rant about it. Video capture. It will do 120p at 720, which is regular HD. At full HD, which is 1080, it will do 60p. And then finally in UHD, which is your ultra high def 4K, it'll do 30 frames per second, 30p. So that's nice. That's not bad. I don't mind that at all. 60p at 1080 is where I'm at. So having that is enough. But not having that rear panel that flips over to be able to see myself like this 80D it just wouldn't work for me. Obviously, I wouldn't be buying it because it's a Micro Four Thirds, but that goes into another thing. Anyways, next, single card slot. It does have a UHS 2 card slot in it. It does have 1. This is a tiny camera. I would never expect it to have 2. So this is absolutely sufficient. Next, you have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth in the camera, which is good. And it has this new connection app where you can use your smartphone or your tablet to directly wire into it and share your images to it. So you can take the pictures and have them downloaded onto your iPad at the same time, or you can use that iPad as a remote control or whatnot. I always like that. I like the idea of Canon has done it forever, Nikon, a lot of the companies have done that, and I like that. I think it's great. Years ago, we'd have like a remote, pointing it at it. It was IR, infrared remote kind of thing. That's all gone, all right? Now everything is Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, whatever, which is good. And finally, the battery. It's going to be a standard battery, but what I like is the camera will be able to be charged on the go, let's say, on the fly through USB. All the cameras are doing it now, but I think it is very important. It's really important to me to be able to charge a camera through USB, and you don't have to worry about that battery running out ever. Now, this 80D, for example, does not do that. So I have to either have it plugged in or I have to continuously change out batteries, which is kind of a pain. So I do like that all of the new current cameras are doing that, charging through USB. Now, the availability of this camera is going to be mid-August, which is now. So you're talking about maybe 2 weeks away. And if you want the body itself on this M10 Mark IV, you're going to pay $699 for it. I believe you can already pre-order it on B&H Photo and Video, which is cool. I'm going to put a link in the description down below. But also, if you want this camera, the body, but also want the kit lens with it, you can do so. The cost is $799 instead of $699, and it basically gives you a 14 to 42 millimeter f3.5 to 5.6 variable f-stop lens, which is the equivalent to like 28 by 84, I think it is. Yeah, 28 by 84. Yeah, math. I don't like variable lenses. This is 3.5 to 5.6, but it is what it is. You can get it or don't get it. It's $100. I would probably spend the $100 extra and get the lens. I don't see why not. For $100, it's probably worth it. But for me, this is not the lens that I would be using. Once again, $799 for the kit or $699 for the body itself. So, where I think it's good, where I think it's bad. I like the specs. I don't think the specs are bad. I think they're kind of ho-hum a little bit. They could be a lot better for the price that you're paying. For $700 today, you're going to get a lot more elsewhere. all right, in my personal opinion. But remember, this is Micro Four Thirds, and there's not a lot of Micro Four Thirds out there anymore, right? Now, we don't know how much longer that this specific line, the M10 line or whatnot, will be around. We don't know, because like I said, at the end of this year, there's not going to be an Olympus camera division anymore. It's sold to Jip. Now, when that happens, how is that going to play on the cameras and how they're being, let's say, innovative, or are they going to be iterative going forward based on the new company that Jip sells this thing to? All right. That's one of those things that make me nervous whenever I buy a camera based on a company that we know is quote unquote going out of business, because you don't know what's going to happen. The same thing happened with Vaio, right? With Sony's Vaio. Some of you guys didn't know this, but Vaio actually stood for Visual Audio Intelligent, I don't know, I guess so. It's a computer organizer. So that was the whole idea behind Vaio. But the bottom line is with Vaio, 2014, Jip buys it. It ends up going south until like 2018 or something. We started seeing them come back, a resurgence and whatnot. So what happens with Olympus and their line once it is sold to this company, this Japan Industrial Partners? Okay, we don't know. And I think that if you have Olympus already and you have the lenses, buying this camera I think is pretty safe. But if you're brand new to photography and you want to get a camera, I don't think I would go with this camera specifically. Number one, because I don't know what they're going to be doing going forward. What is support going to be like? What are they doing? I don't know, number one. Number two, I don't think the specs are all that great for $700. I mean, you can get an APS-C, a bigger sensor, for $700. You can get a full frame for just under $1,000. Let's call it like $300 more. You end up with a full frame camera. Now, do you need it or do you not? Full frame is going to be larger. All right. They are getting smaller, but full frame will be larger. But APS-C is basically almost the exact same size. You can get APS-C cameras, like for example, you could get a Canon M series, the #1 mirrorless camera on the market, for around this price, all right, close to, and it's APS-C instead of Micro Four Thirds, and it does everything that this does, all right, and more. So it's a hard call. I think that, like I said, if you are an Olympus guy already and you have glass, I think it's a possibility to buy this. I still don't think that it is a wonderful piece of equipment for the cost. I think they could have done a lot more with it. And I said this in the past, and I will stand by this. I think Olympus should have done the same thing that Panasonic did. When Panasonic saw the writing on the wall and saw that people are not buying Micro Four Thirds as much because the cost of APS-C and full frame was becoming lower and lower and lower. And that margin between the two became narrower and more narrow. Now, they said, you know what? We need to go forward. We need to go into the future and make sure we future-proof our Panasonic line. So what did they do? The S series was born. I think that if Olympus didn't want to go full frame, I think they could have went APS-C and did a direct comparison or a direct competition with Fujifilm and their X line, their XT line. That's my opinion. And I think it would have done them well. But instead, they stuck with the Micro Four Thirds. They didn't innovate. They didn't go anywhere. They came up with a $3,000 Micro Four Thirds camera, which I said was going to be the nail in their coffin. And literally like 5 months after that, that's exactly what happened. All right. Sadly. So what do you guys think? Are you interested in this M10 Mark IV? Is it something that you would be, let's say, eager to buy or not? I would like to know what you think. But before I end this video, I want to say that if you haven't downloaded my ebook, go over to jcristina.com/ebook. Once again, jchristina.com/ebook, 10 tips at making tack sharp images. Something there for amateurs as well as professionals. Go check it out. It's free. Once again, jchristina.com/ebook. So guys, that's really about it. Let me know your thoughts on this Olympus. I want to hear from you. What do you think? All right, what do you think? In the comment area below, let's have this discussion. And after, head over to our Discord. I put together a creative Discord server for all of us. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photographers just like you from everywhere in the world. They're all there having these conversations all day, every day, 24/7. So head over to community.jchristina.com. Once again, community.jchristina.com. It's free. Sign up, get into that Discord server, and let's have this conversation over there once the conversation dies out on YouTube. So guys, that's it. I'm out of here for yet another vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe and stay healthy.